I don't want anyone to even look me in the eye on my birthday. Hello, experts. Welcome back to another episode of Experts About Nothing. You may only hear one voice right now, and that's because my funnier, smarter, more put together co-part, Diksha, is currently on a trip visiting some family, so I'm going to do my very best to carry this solo episode, and I honestly can't even complain because Diksha has already done a solo episode, and if you haven't listened to it, please go back through the episodes and take a listen because it turned out amazing. So yeah, I need to buck up and get through this, but it is way harder without Diksha. And definitely not as fun. So I need her back stat. And while we're at it, I'm going to take my best stab at doing a plug, which if you haven't noticed, Diksha is usually the one that does the plug because she's so good at it. But I'm going to try. So we've had a couple of new episodes released over the past few weeks, and we've had some really amazing guests. We had a good episode on ghosting for spooky season, so take a listen to those and let us know any feedback you have. And of course, follow us on Instagram. We have some content and you'll get like the most up-to-date information on when we drop episodes. So yeah, and let me know how I did on the plug. All right, well, I hope you guys are having a great fall. I know in New York, the weather has been kind of insanely beautiful. And it's weird because usually around this time, it's starting to get pretty cold. But this past weekend, it was like 70 degrees. And everyone was just out and about in like shorts. And it was really a phenomenal time. So, this all is probably attributed to global warming, which it's definitely not a great long-term situation. But I'm trying to enjoy whatever sunlight we can get. So that's been the vibe over here. And also this past weekend was the New York City Marathon. And listen, I think you might, if you listen to earlier episodes, you know that I did like a 5K earlier this year. I am not a runner per se. Diksha is like I am confident one day she's going to do a marathon and I'm going to be just a blubbering mess because even this past weekend, I saw so many videos and like photos on TikTok and Instagram of people completing the New York City Marathon, and it truly made me so emotional. I was like actually crying watching these videos of people I don't even know completing the marathon, and I just think it's such an amazing feat, and it makes me super inspired to just like keep tackling my own fitness goals, which by no means is a marathon. It's like maybe trying to run a 10K or like hitting 3 to 5 gym sessions a week, like smaller goals. But I think there's something so empowering about committing to something, putting your mind to it, physically working your butt off and getting that done is just so amazing to even witness. And so I was like really emo this weekend just watching all of these New York City Marathon stories, even though I had no part in it. But next year, I definitely want to go and try and like make signs and cheer people on. I didn't realize it was such a big thing that like everyone, even if you don't know someone running the marathon, people show up and just like support. And I definitely want to try to do that next year if I can. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm coming off of this weekend. It's also daylight savings. Weird, but this is the daylight savings I like because you gain an hour, and I don't know, I'm feeling pretty refreshed this morning, probably because I'm getting a full, like it's 8 a.m. right now that I'm recording on a Monday. But technically it's 9 a.m. So I'm thriving at this point. And I think we're like getting rid of daylight savings. I think I'm going to miss fall daylight savings because it's kind of fun. You feel like you're getting after it and everything's like earlier for a few days. Then you adjust and I become, the same gremlin that I was before daylight savings. But I don't know. This one kind of hits. Maybe a controversial opinion. I'm not sure. Anyway, we'll get into this week's episode. And this is something that I have been experiencing right now because my birthday is coming up. I am a Scorpio. Everyone's always shocked. Get your gasps out of the way now. I know. I don't know. I think ever since probably starting around late high school, early college, I started experiencing the birthday blues. And I don't know if this is already a trademarked term. I would like to think I made it up and will be coining it now, but it's probably something a lot of people experience and know about. But it's kind of that build up to your birthday when maybe you're feeling a little more reflective, taking notes on the year, and you might not feel that amazing. Like maybe you're thinking about things that you wanted to accomplish this year that you haven't done, or certain things you think you should have by this age that you're turning that you don't have, or just general woes about turning older. And I never understood the turning older part, or like the fear around turning older when I was younger, which I think is classic. You know, all young people are like, why are you sad about turning older? I love birthdays. Let's throw a party, blah, blah, blah. And then you start hitting ages where you're like, ouch, this one kind of is hitting a little different. And that is what I have been starting to feel. I think especially starting the pandemic birthdays, I was like, okay, there goes 23. There goes 24. We're just sitting at home, like not doing the things that we want to be doing right now. This particular birthday, I'm turning 26. And there's something frankly extremely rude and dramatic about this age, I gotta say. This turning 25 to 26 feels just disarming because you are departing your early 20s and you're entering your late 20s. And I know that that's probably not as big of a deal as people make it out to be, but it feels like a big deal because you're edging closer to 30, you're getting closer to that new decade, and that feels bizarre, especially exiting your 20s. It feels like, okay, fun's over, time to be a real adult. That's how I feel. And so I think this year specifically, I noticed myself feeling the birthday blues a few weeks ago, and kind of that build up to the birthday. And I really wanted to dive a little bit deeper into what I was even feeling. Why am I sad about literally just a random day that I turn a new age? Why is this so important to me? And kind of figuring out ways that I could make myself think about that time period a little bit differently. And I by no means have figured this out. I'm still kind of navigating my emotions, but I have noted down a few things that I think have been an interesting new lens that I'm trying to see birthdays in, and how I'm trying to combat the birthday blues, actively fight against it and just be more joyful and grateful and excited for a new year and a new age, And so I'm going to kind of walk through what I've been processing and how I've been feeling. Maybe you can take some tips from this, and maybe you can provide me some tips for this if you've experienced some form of the birthday blues in the past. Okay, let's get into my first thought. So what I tried to do this year is actually take inventory of all of the things that have happened this year, good and bad, trying to approach this from a more neutral lens and cataloging, literally writing down things that I remember that have happened this year that I have experienced. And so, of course, the bad things bring up tough emotions. And I think for this year, particularly for me, that has been the hardest part about this, because this has probably been one of the most challenging years of my life. I've experienced grief in a lot of different ways, and it's hard to look back on those periods of time and take anything positive from it, because I don't think I'm there yet. I'm still honestly processing a lot of it. But what I was trying to do is really just note down those experiences and be grateful for my mind and body for even getting me through that. And I don't know. I think that's a beautiful thing on its own, just to appreciate, like the vessel that you're in, to be like, wow, this happened and here you are. And there's really not much more I can take from that other than just like a sense of gratitude. And yeah, sometimes I think life is tough, and just living through it is an accomplishment in itself. That's kind of been what I've been trying to do while processing some of these harder moments of this year. And also, I think for the good moments, something that I've done in the past is be like, oh, nothing amazingly awesome happened this year, right? Like when you think of good moments, I think of big dramatic things, and I'll like compare myself to others. I'm like, oh, they got, like a PhD this year, and they got married this year, they got a house this year. Like, what did I do? I didn't get any of these things. And I just really wrote down anything remotely positive that like I experienced this year, and that ranged from small wins to, medium successes. And I don't think I had any like dramatic, huge wins this year in the realm of like life-altering good things, right? And I think most years you don't. Like, I don't know why I had this expectation that like something phenomenal had to happen to me every single year. I think most years are pretty chill, and as long as like you have a couple small wins, like that's great. Like some of the medium to big wins that I had were like getting the role that I wanted in my job and starting this podcast, which feels like a huge accomplishment. Honestly, probably a big win. That is a big win for Diksha and myself, because it's something that we actually executed on, something that we've been thinking about for a long time. And now we're a year in, or close to a year in, which seems insane, and have a bunch of episodes and like experiences from that are really amazing to look at. But I also was thinking about some of my smaller wins. So this past year, I got to go on a bunch of like trips, both small and big. And one of them was going to Banff with my parents. And I drove from Banff to Jasper, which is another like national park in Canada. And why that was a win to me is because it was probably one of the first times that I truly felt like I was enjoying driving, which may be weird. Like maybe you're listening to this and you love driving and you can do like, you felt that joy since you started driving. But that has not been the case for me. Driving's always been a point of mild insecurity and anxiety, and I can drive, I'll get it done, but it's not really something that I would say that I like love. And usually when someone else is offering to drive, I'm like, I'm not going to fight you on this, please drive. I'm like more than happy to be a passenger. But I did make it a point to drive in Banff to Jasper. And of course, I'm not always going to be driving through like the most beautiful scenic route of all time, But just having that moment where I was like, whoa, maybe I like driving, and maybe I can do this more in the future and actually enjoy it and not have it be a point of like a chore for me. I think that was a small win. And yeah, like getting to have more experiences with like my really close friends, getting to reconnect with friends that I haven't seen in a really long time at like weddings and engagements and like all these big milestone events that are big for other people, but also you have those small moments of connection with people that you haven't seen in a while, which has been like awesome. And I get to relight some of those friendships and remember how amazing they were. And yeah, those have all been really, really like big highlights in my life. And as I was writing them down, I was like, whoa, a lot of good has happened this year, and I'm really grateful for quite a bit. So I think taking that inventory and not reflecting on the year of everything I didn't do or don't have, but reflecting on just like what has happened and seeing where I'm at now, that's been a good first step. Just nip that woe is me mentality, like victim mentality when you're approaching your birthday in the butt, and be like, okay, here's where we're at. This is like reality. Let's not think of all the hypotheticals and move from there. The next thing I've been really trying to do, and this is the hardest thing for me, this is what I will probably be working on for a long time. I don't know. This is by no means solved for me. But it's letting go of constructed dreams. As a child, I had like a very set vision of what I thought I was supposed to be doing in my late 20s, right? And this vision is not, I didn't concoct this when I was 6 years old. This is stuff that has been told to me, that I saw, that I've like seen on TV, whatever. What that is like, oh, okay, I'm supposed to have a family by this point. I'm supposed to have a good amount of money, and I'm supposed to have a house, and like all of these like big external physical things. Like I'm supposed to have all of these objects in my life or people in my life by this point in time. And I didn't really see a reality that diverged from that. I just kind of assumed that that would happen to me. Or like, I'm not thinking about why this hasn't happened to me as much. I still do. I'm not going to say that, that thought doesn't cross my mind. But when it does, I think baseline, I've really come to understand that we're really not entitled to anything. I don't know if that's the best way to phrase it, but I can't assume that these things are going to like fall into my lap because that is the timeline that society expects of me, or even I expect of me, right? Everything requires work. It requires, external factors to align, especially when it has to do like with relationships or marriage. Like that's not just on me. That's on a complete other person, another entity, a relationship with you or a partnership with you. Like those aren't things that are completely in your control. And so it's hard to see, it's hard for those dreams or like those visions of your future to not be aligned with exactly where you're at this point in time. Like in a way, I feel like you have to grieve that dream. Like if you thought at 25 you were going to be married and you're not, like, okay, the reality is you're not, and you have to kind of let that go. And that is a weirdly painful loss. I have felt like it's something that I have to let go of. But as you're letting go, you feel so much more free to think about other things and dream other dreams. Like I look back at what I really aspired for as a kid, and my world was so small. Like my dreams were so small because I didn't experience so much. My dreams now, like I didn't even know they were an option when I was a kid. And I think that's the point. We don't have to like engrave these things in stone. It's fluid, it's flexible. And like the more that I understand that, the easier it becomes for me to like think bigger and feel freer. Not that I'm failing my child self, but instead I am opening up doors that my child self didn't even know existed. And of course there's like tinges of sadness when, there's an overlap of what I wanted as a kid and what I want now. But there are different timelines and there are different like ways that can happen. It's not going to be in the exact pattern that like you think it's going to happen as a kid, because you're watching fairy tales when you're a kid. And as an adult, the world is way more vast and different. But yeah, I think this is the hardest thing to let go of. I think I'll be working on that for a long time. What I've been trying to do is place the same amount of value on these external things that people have with like my internal work. What I mean by that is the work that you're doing on your mind, and like even the work of me trying to deconstruct the birthday blues and hopefully make this easier on myself next year and the years to come. That holds the same amount of value as buying a house, right? Like, or like getting, a partner, whatever. all of those external things that hold a lot of value, it's not like that value goes away, but there are other internal things that also really help you in the long term that I think hold the same amount of value. And I'm trying to look at those things equally, because it's really easy to place so much importance on the physical things and no importance on the intangible things. And I think the earlier that we kind of do some of this groundwork, the easier and easier that becomes, because the hardships of life don't really like disappear at any point. Letting yourself grieve some of those visions for your future if they haven't worked out exactly the way that you want them to is a really natural part of your 20s, I've learned, especially through talking to friends or even people older than me, like in their 30s, who are like, no, I felt all of these emotions that you felt. Even if you are looking back at their life and think that they have everything figured out, I think everyone has some facet of their life that they have to let go of, and it opens up so much more for them in the future. This is something that is really prevalent around birthdays. The other thing about the birthday blues, I've got to say, is straight up just your birthday plans. There is so much pressure around birthdays and like, oh, do I need to throw this like rager? Are my friends supposed to do this for me? It just is awkward, and it like I feel like it's always just been this awkward, weird dance that you have to do around your birthday. Either you're like, oh, I don't want to do anything, and then your friends are like, no, we have to do something, and that's like this weird friction that people have to go through. Or you want something really big and you don't want to plan it and you want someone else to plan it for you, and that's awkward. Or you know, you plan it and it doesn't work out as well, and you don't have, or like you're not having a great time because you're putting all this effort into planning like a birthday party for yourself. Like, that's awkward. All in all, I think birthdays are just a little bit awkward. I have felt all ranges of that. I think year to year, it depends on what I'm feeling. Like some years I'm like, yes, I want to celebrate my birthday and have like this big party. Some years I'm like, no, I don't want anyone to even look me in the eye on my birthday. And this year, I definitely was like, okay, I don't really want like a big party or anything. I'm not feeling like that would be fun for me. So I want something medium to low key with just like some of my friends. And then I want to spend some time with my parents. And I just let everyone know. I was like, this is what I want. And okay, now we're all on the same page and we can make that happen. And I think just being super honest with like whoever your friends are or your family who want to celebrate with you, and being like, okay, this is what I'm feeling, and I'm being very truthful about that, is the best policy to move forward through the birthday awkwardness. And I think that's just one less thing to worry about, because yes, birthdays are a weird, sensitive time, and your celebration or whatever you want to do for your birthday should really not be what's dragging you down. Age is really nothing but a number. And I know this is really cliche, but like, as you grow older, your body's not going to be the same, your mind's not going to be the same, etc. But we have a lot that's also in our own control and in our power. Like, going back to the New York City Marathon, like there's like 70, 80-year-olds running this marathon. I am significantly younger than them, and I literally could not even be bothered to run a quarter of a marathon. Like, that's impossible for me right now, because they've prioritized that in their life, and they have been like actively training and working towards it for probably years, and that's in their control. I get so inspired by people who start working towards a new goal or a new chapter in their life throughout their life. Like, it's not like you had to start that business when you were like 20 years old, or you had to start that hobby when you were like 15. You know, that's not always going to be the case. I think we discover things as we get older, and it's so much less pressure. See those stories and see people who, you know, started their business later in life or started their new career like later in life, and be like, yeah, that can happen too. Like, it really doesn't matter as much as we make it matter. And like, the more we make that number matter in our mind, I think the more blockers we're putting up for ourselves in the future, because you're like, I'm too old to even try this, and no one's telling you that but yourself, and then you're not going to try it. So I'm trying to just remove the importance around age. Like, that's just a number, and what I make of that year is like completely separate to the number. I don't care. I'm going to do whatever I want to do at whatever age, because I think I low-key have a grandma mindset, and I need to get out of that. Oh, and something that Ashi actually was telling me that really has been a great reminder is anytime you start to feel anxious about the future, or like, your age or something that is down the line that hasn't happened yet, hugging yourself, like literally just like holding your arms, which I know might be like a funny picture to do, but honestly, you could do that kind of discreetly. I don't think it doesn't need to be a dramatic self-hug, but yeah, just like touching your arms, like giving yourself a little hug and noticing the space around you, being like, okay, like this is what I have control over, like my body and this radius of this hug is just a good mental reminder to like bring you back to the present moment and understand that like this is what matters at any given moment. It's just like what you can do and like what's directly around you. I don't know if that made a ton of sense. I think Ashi explained that a lot better, but I hope it made some sense, because that's actually been like a really good tool for me every time I start to mildly spin out or like create some sort of doomsday scenario in my head. All right. And then I think I touched on this point throughout all of the other points I was talking about, but I also think that the birthday blues are going to happen in some form anyway, and that's normal and natural and okay, and like it's okay to just feel the blues a little bit and just experience those. Let yourself kind of process whatever that emotion is coming up for you, and then let it go. I think in the past I was always like, I need to, like, it's like wrong for me to feel these things, so I need to like shut it out. And I think it's really natural. Like, I think people feel this at every age, every stage of life, wishing you were somewhere else or wishing certain things had happened to you. Like, I think that's really normal, but the point is to not make that a bigger moment than it is. That was a lot of blues talk, but I hope this was somewhat relatable to people, and I hope all of my fellow Scorpios have great birthdays this season. And frankly, we get this really bad rep, and I have met a lot of fun Scorpios, okay? I think we could be fun. So, oh my gosh, I have a favorite. Okay, sorry. The other day, this past Saturday, me, Ashi, and Prachi watched The Pacifier. I don't know if you guys remember what this movie is, but this was like an early 2000s movie with Vin Diesel where he is a agent. I think he works for the government. He's like in the military or something, and then he gets assigned to like babysit this house of kids because they're like in danger. And this movie, like, we were like taking forever to figure out what movie we wanted to watch, as per usual, and we saw The Pacifier on Disney, and we were like, oh my god, we have to watch this. And it really held up, you guys. Like, that movie is so good. I was shook, because I was like, you rewatch like old movies that you used to love, and you're like, that does not hit the same. But this one really hit the same. Like, Vin Diesel was amazing. I was like, pop off. That has been my week's favorite. Anywho, I hope you guys have a great week, and we will be back very soon with Diksha. Keyword with Diksha. Thank God. Okay. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.